she got because she fooled him.
Yeah,
because
well,
overall, they believe that transgender women who are considered, for the most part, to be sex workers are fooling men and therefore deserve what they got.
Yeah, well, the people with any kind of sense know that it's not all about fooling people. They're an intimate partner of violence.
Well, most people with any sense know that, but that does not stop them from using that as the excuse.
Yeah, because they've been getting away with it forever until they're not able to use that as an excuse and are prosecuted and receive some kind of consequences. That's when it's going to stop.
Exactly. Every bit as much as the panic defense on the gay murders.
Yes, the trans panic defense has actually worked in many states when it comes to a lot of these murders.
Of course.
It's incredibly disheartening, but it's incredibly beyond disheartening. It's enraging, and I think that what you're talking about when you're talking about the fact that the fooling, right? And that's one of the things that when we talk about sometimes the smallest things, people don't understand, and I don't want to go too far off a tangent, but people don't understand why I get so upset when trans women are portrayed by cisgender men in movies and media. And I'm like, you guys are furthering the stereotype that trans women are really just men in wigs and makeup and that they're trying to fool somebody. And that is not what the case is. And this is what leads to more murders and all that happening. And I think that until people take those things seriously, they don't realize the ripple effect and the compounding effect that they have on the violence in our community.
Yeah, well, don't apologize about being outraged. We need more of that. I think that's a part of the problem now. We as trans people, we're too passive. We're too accepting of, the violence against our community, and until we get outraged enough to start making some noise, some serious noise, then it's not going to stop.
Yeah. I would just love to add, too, that in terms of laws and policies around violence, if we aren't passive, if we do act up and we do speak up, there are a number of people, and people know of C.C. McDonald's case, but there are a number of people who are incarcerated currently or formerly incarcerated for defending themselves.
Exactly.
For trying to flag down a cop car when they're being harassed or anything is happening. And so I think the other thing is that when we do defend ourselves and when we do speak up, we're actually criminalized for that behavior rather than being able to further our rights as we want to or as intend to. So I think the scary thing is that this is why this is such an issue, and it's a public health issue. People should know that it is. For people not to be able to step out their homes or get on a train or get a job or go somewhere safe, that's an issue for the entire country that people should be aware of, especially when there are laws and policies that criminalize and lock people up when they do.
Yes.
Right. Or use the excuse of, we want to keep you safe, and so that once you are locked up, we're going to put you in solitary confinement, which is just another form of torture.
Oh, yes. And
exactly.
Law Project, we do a lot of organizing around isolation as a practice that continues further harm because, exactly, whether we voluntarily choose to do it or involuntarily get put there, we can't be part of programs. We can't get medical services. Once people are isolated, it's disgusting.
Yeah, and they're being attacked in these situations because it's being allowed. It's a common practice. So instead of helping the transgender person to, make better choices while they're incarcerated so that they can do things other than, the illegal stuff when they come out of incarceration, maybe get some kind of education depending on how long they're going to be there, they're not allowed to do that because the people that are attacking and violating trans people, they're getting away with it. It's acceptable.
Yeah, and I think that obviously what makes it even more difficult, and saying this as a white person, is that when you have the fact that you are trans, and then put on top of that you are a woman, and then put on top of that you are a person of color, that intersectionality makes it so much more difficult to defend yourself in a way that is not going to allow you to go home that night. Right, because we look at what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement and the police brutality that's going on, and add to that when you are defending yourself against a cis attacker, and you've got a whole lot going on there that is just it's oppression upon oppression upon oppression.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's why we see so much that a vast majority of these people that are being murdered are not just trans women of color, but black trans women, because there is a complete disrespect and a devaluing of not only black lives, but black women's lives, and particularly trans lives. And so when you have those three things in one package, it ends in some of the most horrible circumstances.
Yes. Well, when I just want to be clear, when I say we need to fight back, we need to stand up and be more outraged, I'm talking about organizing as trans people. I think together we will be able to make a bigger difference. I would like to find out if there was some kind of way that we could pattern the movement after ACT UP, because when this AIDS epidemic started happening, nothing was being done until they started disrupting, these procedures, the state houses and, these boardrooms, and I think if we come together and try to organize and come up with some kind of movement that we can all agree upon and then move forward within our communities that way, then I think we will have some kind of impact, a positive impact on what's happening within our community. But I just think I'm going to say it again, we're just remaining too silent. And I think it's time for us to come together as a community, really come together and put aside our egos and our personalities and everybody wants to be the chief of this and the chief of that. And let's come up with some kind of solution so we don't have to deal with trans people being murdered almost one per day, one per week, one on an hourly basis.
Yeah. So, Tracy, since you bring that up, because I think that's an amazing idea for that coming together and that organizing. There are so many organizations that do a lot of frontline work, and if we can all kind of band together. So I guess my question for anyone, but particularly Tracy, since you brought it up, was what do you think is stopping people from doing that? Do you think that it's fear? Do you think that it is just a giving up, like I can't even do this anymore? Or do you think that it's just we have so much going on in our lives, just keeping food in our mouths and a roof over our head and a job, that we just simply don't have time? Like, what do you think it is that is contributing to such, as you said, just kind of a lack of action?
I think that it's a combination of everything you just said, Eli. I also think that we don't have the knowledge. We don't have the information. And those that do have the information, most of them are transphobic also. So they're not going to share the information that's going to empower us and uplift us. And also, we have these trainings, these lobbying trainings, and all of these various trainings that these foundations and organizations are sponsoring. Where's the training as to organize transgender people and how to fight for our rights? I haven't seen that,
Right.
So I think it's a combination of things that are going on. We just had, what I've noticed and observed recently is that unless there's a white knight riding in on a white horse to save us poor trans people, then nothing is going to happen. And I'm just sick and tired of us waiting for the white knight to ride in on his white horse to save us. It's time for us to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to get anywhere if we rely on our oppressors.
No, absolutely not.
Could I say something here?
Yes, please.
This is Cheryl. Speaking of trying to do something for ourselves, at present, although there might not be anything happening here right now in Atlanta in real time, there are a couple of online groups, and we're organizing around trying to do something for self. And one of those groups is Women of Action, and we are planning to try to have a coming together of trans women from around the country here in Atlanta, November 6th through 8th. We at present started that organizing online via Facebook and Google Chat.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I guess during that type of retreat, we'll brainstorm on ways and means to try to address this epidemic of trans murdering.
Yeah, well, I'm all for it. I'm just tired of the lip service. it's time for us to take some action.
Exactly, which was the reason why we're trying to get together face to face. I don't know how many of us here in Atlanta will pull together and come, but in the meantime, all we can do is try to pull it together.
Absolutely.
This is Sasha. I was going to say, I think the other thing that's happening now, and it's been happening in our communities, is that we are learning how to work better together and confront the issues that we have and lead our own work and not expect that other people, like folks just said, are going to do that and are going to prioritize us when they haven't. And they've continued to the larger LGBT community, larger communities of color, but I think what's happening right now is part of what's always happened in movements, is that you have policy changing, you have media changing, you have folks out there in the community who have been and continue to organize, speaking up about what their work is. But I think what's always been true about movement organizing is some of the most important work that people are doing, nobody knows anything about. And not just people outside of our community, but people in our communities. And I think it's hard because right now we have social media and all these things, and you spoke to that it's not just sharing a hashtag. It's really getting to know the people in our community and sharing and celebrating their work and coming out not just after something happens, but being proactive. Because that's the other thing we've seen is, now there's funding for trans communities because of the epidemic of
Everybody
HIV.
wants to jump
Or
on
now there's it's not too late, but it's sad to see that's happening now, and that at the same time our communities are being tokenized. Over at SRP, we've been trying to do a lot of work. We've always done a lot of work with the city and with the state to try to hold them accountable, whether that's Medicaid and trans health and our wins there, or recently we did some citywide summit in the Bronx with council members. But I think the hard thing is getting people to stay and getting people to really build and listen to us and not just do the lip service, because it's in the tabloids, because it's a hot topic, because they want to check off a box like, yes, I talked about trans violence, but actually have people who are invested in us, people who are not only financially invested in us, but love us, care about us, want to get to know us. And I think the hard thing is, and we're trying to do this, is we're trying to get to know each other better because we are isolated all across the country and all across the world from each other, even with social media. So I think it's happening and we're doing it, but we're up against so much violence, especially at the intersections like you talked about for those of us who are black and trans or trans people of color in terms of police violence and other state violence. So I think the time is now. The time has always been now, like they say, right? And that's happening. And I'm honored to be on the call with these two amazing women who I think are also instrumental in this work that's been happening.
Yes. Well, they're saying what's after marriage equality? What's after marriage equality is employment protections for all people, specifically transgender people. More hate crimes protections. Hate crimes have to meet a certain criteria before it's allocated as a hate crime. So I think that maybe there should be some kind of reconsideration of that, And what's also, what I've found a slap in the face to us living here locally in Atlanta is, we have so many people dying. We still have so many trans people dying. And here we are discussing putting the pride flag on the crosswalk in Midtown. They're forming these corporations, these nonprofits to maintain that. But what about the people who are dying on a daily basis? And it just goes to show what their priorities are when it comes to transgender people. Just because they're LGB, that doesn't mean they're not transphobia. And Lord knows we have a lot of transphobic people within our community that professes to be, pro-trans, they're LGB, and so we're all in the same boat together. That's a bunch of BS. And from now on, I'm going to start calling them out because I'm sick and tired of them calling me personally to participate in what they have going on, their initiatives. But when it comes time for them to participate and show up for us, they don't. We just recently had a meeting with MARTA executives in the diversity department. Some of our pro LGBT people are talking about, yes, I'm coming, tell me what time, give me the date, give me the address, They're calling me the day of the event, and asking for the address, but then when it comes time to come to the event, there's no show. So I'm sick and tired of that, and from now on, I'm going to call them out.